Hello, everyone, and welcome to Around the Scene, presented to you by Playing with Rockets. My name is Perino. You do not normally hear my voice on the introduction because we've had a bit of a roster shuffle of our own on the show today. Joining me in the booth, in the studio, is the one and only collegiate extraordinaire. It's Mr. Squidd. How you doing?
Oh, well, I'm doing all right. Collegiate extraordinaire, that might be a bit of an aggressive title. I think some of the RLCS guys have really gotten invested in that, but yeah, I'm glad to be here, Have a chill, old time. Me and Ryan used to do a little bit on the Talk podcast, so it's nice to be back in those shoes a little bit.
Heck yeah, it's so good to have you with us, and obviously, we've talked about it a bit. Ryan is very busy at the moment. He just had the birth of his baby boy. His name is Bentley, and he just hopped along for the ride with us on September the 6th of 2021. So, again, congratulations, Ryan, becoming a father, first-time father, and he's all excited. He's very happy. I've been texting him a bit. He's doing really well, but obviously, he's a little bit preoccupied to do the show this week. So, we're going to give him a pass, I think, for, your firstborn son. I think we can let him take that.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good call. I think one of the big things I'm wondering, though, is I'm expecting Bentley to be joining a professional Rocket League team on 9/6/2036, right? So I'm just kind of curious as to which one he'll end up being on, right? I don't know if that's just me, but...
well, here's the thing. We can maybe arrange some futures contracts. We talked about it a few episodes ago. Kansas City Pioneers got Drawley at 11. Yep. Ryan and I might have some connections with Team Envy there. I think we can give him a call and just say, hey, this is really young kid you got to be on the lookout for. His name's Bentley, and, he's going to be the next Rolls Royce of Rocket League.
Well,
see, there you go. Pitch is already done.
You know what they say is the younger they are, the better they are at Rocket League. So automatically, Bentley could not be much better right now. He is in his prime. 2 days old.
He's peaking.
He's peaking. Just give the man a controller. He dunks on everybody in RLCS. It's that easy.
There you go. It's easy as you like. Guys, this is Around the Scene. Again, new episodes are going to be coming at you every single Thursday for you to get your fix on all things Rocket League. If you like the show, be sure to give us a follow on YouTube. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're also on Google Podcasts. We have a Twitch channel if we ever decide to actually do a live episode again, in the works. Best way to keep up with us, though, is on Twitter. That is at PWR_leagues. That's where we post all of our episodes, get updates on all sorts of little things there. And Squidd, are you ready to get into the meat of today's show?
Oh, yeah, I absolutely am. And just before we get on with it, though, I do have to mention, I believe you mentioned Ryan's not going to be on for next week either, right? So, makes sense still. But, you guys might have to put up with some unlucky Joe like myself for a second week in a row.
Yeah,
that'd just be terrible.
We're giving him 2 weeks of paternity leave here on Around the Scene.
That's it. No more.
It's a tough corporate culture here. Only 2 weeks for paternity. It's but we're making it work. So, yeah, we'll keep you guys updated on if we are doing it with someone new. If Squidd decides that he likes me enough to hang out with me for another hour next week as well, we'll see. Again, we'll see how this one goes. It could be tough.
Maybe. Well, I mean, with that being said, we do have to move on here. And first off, Perino, WePlay announcing their 100K Invitational, including, I think most importantly, some Middle Eastern teams, particularly Sandrock Gaming, which a lot of people are excited for, right? Who have been making some waves in the U scene for some time now. Very nice to see. They're coming in before RLCS, so I think a lot of people might be getting a little bit miffed about that one in the background because at the time of recording, it has been some time since the RLCS offseason has started. But it's great to see more support for the Middle Eastern region as well as just more competition in general.
Oh, absolutely. And this is a huge event. WePlay kind of coming out of left field here with the fat, six-figure prize pool for this one. It's going to be taking place the weekend of the 16th to the 19th of September. So that's actually Thursday through Sunday. So 4-day event, effectively structured like a regional, I'm pretty sure. And this is a huge one, Squidd. I mean, they've got some of the best teams from North America and EU. And as you mentioned, bringing in the Middle Eastern teams, we see so much fanfare for Sandrock Gaming in particular is the one I know everyone loves to talk about. You know, these guys are being given a real shot here against the best in the world, truly. So if there's ever a time to step up and, you know, seize that moment, I say on stage, you know, like it's a LAN. It's not going to be a LAN. It's going to be online, of course. But, you know, to seize the moment on that stage, pretty cool for Sandrock.
Oh, yeah, it absolutely is. I mean, people have been giving a lot of hype to Ahmad and Khaled for a long time now, especially in the show matches. Shout out to Johnny Boy for that. I don't think he really needs shout outs from us, but I'll give one anyways. But you get the idea, right? You know, they have proven themselves on the 1v1 stage, and as a team, multiple times in the past, there have been a lot of proponents for including the Middle East in significant competitions, and I think finally we get a premier event, right? This is invite only. There's no open qualifiers for this at all. WePlay just decided, you know what? We're going to give them a shot. I think that was a good move on their part. On the North American side, as you mentioned, we got a lot of the elite teams. I believe, actually, but if I might go back to the European side a little bit, the German Amigos got somewhat upset that they weren't invited. Right, so we'll just quick go through the roster here. We got Team BDS, nobody surprised there. Vitality coming in, SMPR, which I believe is a new acquisition and may have some roster shuffles on it. So I might have to go back and check on that one. Sandrock, as I said before, Carmine Core, Segatachi Astral, Dignitas with their new roster, Scrub Killa replacing Violent Panda Guild, and the Vodafone Giants. So not really too many surprises there, I think, as far as rosters go, except for that Sandrock Gaming, which is a big one people are very excited about, which I suppose would be a pleasant surprise, right? So if anybody was going to argue that it is a surprise, then it's a pleasant one at that. And then on the North American side, the General NRG, Envy, Space Station Rogue, G2 FaZe, Shopify Rebellion, and the Sonics. I don't think anybody's really going to argue too much, except for maybe that version 1 should have been considered for a spot there. But Perino, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, for North America, it's pretty simple. You know, I think you take the quote-unquote Big Six, you know, with NRG, Envy, Space Station, Rogue, G2 FaZe. Shopify make a very strong case for number 7, generally speaking, so that's obviously a good one to include there as well. Yeah, and then for that last spot, it makes it really tough, right? You know, we've seen a lot of movement around rosters, and the Sonics at the moment do not officially have a set roster yet. Now, the rumor, I believe, is that they are going with Andy, ZPS, and I think it's T-Corral still that's on there. I gotta see.
Yes,
this is
T-Corral's still on.
Yeah, see, this is why we have Liquipedia, because Liquipedia is our #1 resource for everything Rocket League esports, and I'm just gonna pull it up really quick. But the rumor is that it's Andy and ZPS with T-Corral, which again is a strong roster, but I'm sure there are some other teams that would say, well, we should be there. Version 1 obviously being the you know, the one that people will consider. But yeah, this is a really, really strong event. You know, this is our first you know, real look at some of the newest RLCS rosters. You know, we'll jump into that in our next segment. You know, we had a couple of big announcements. You know, discuss the rosters a little bit, but you know, some big names are going to be on some new teams, and it'll be exciting to see how they do. A lot of pressure, I think, for some teams.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I could not agree more. I think that especially for FaZe Clan, that is going to be true. You know, everybody thinking like AJ, Illusion, and First Killer all on one team is going to be ridiculous. But as of the time of recording, I believe it was roughly an hour and 20 minutes ago, if I'm not mistaken on that part, True Neutral. Remember, the South American team, South America, they haven't historically been too solid against the two major regions. They moved to Mexico so they could compete at NA RLCS. And they 4-0'd FaZe Clan in what I believe was a show match on Rizzo's stream. I could be wrong on that one, but I know that the 4-0 did happen. I don't remember what the stakes were or who was broadcasting in particular, but that was a result that took place. So FaZe Clan, the super team that everybody was looking forward to, immediately taking one in the kneecap from True Neutral, the newcomers to NA.
Yeah, and I think FaZe are going to struggle to adapt at first. You know, First Killer is a very... obviously, he's one of the best players in the world at the moment, you know, in terms of form and what he's capable of doing. But there is an adjustment period, you know, where you have to sort of mesh with the team a little bit. You know, you're going against squads that we mentioned true neutral there. Against teams that have been together for a long time, you're gonna have a hard time because you don't necessarily have like that confidence and that instinct and the trust to know what everyone's doing at every single point in the game. So there will be an adjustment period for FaZe, but this is definitely going to be, the event to get some work in, against, again, the best teams in North America and EU and the Middle East. So that'll be fun.
Yes. And I don't know, do we actually have confirmation on whether or not they're going to do a across-the-pond match, regardless of their obvious ping differential? I don't remember. It doesn't seem to have a finals, so I think it might just be split between Europe and the Middle East and then NA as well. So,
Yeah, we don't have word on complete structure yet for the event. We just have the announcement. It came out this morning, so I'm sure that we'll be able to update. But again, as of the time of recording, this is Wednesday, September 8th. Numbers are hard. We don't totally know yet, so it'll depend. I'm assuming that because it's online, they'll probably keep it separate regions, and just do the whole thing. But we'll figure it out as we go along. I'm certain.
Well, I mean, you say that right. It's not really our job though, thankfully. So we don't really have to figure it out. It's a problem for them to tackle. Although I will say, Middle East and North America ping. I'm not down for that, right? Some people argue that regardless of the European to North American ping, right, people can still compete reliably in most situations, but Middle East is kind of stretching a little bit more. So I don't know about that one personally. But it would be nice to see. It certainly would. I mean, people have, of course, been talking of Sandrock Gaming in particular. I think it would be nice to see a little bit more Middle Eastern representation, but in fairness, having one is already a massive leap, so...
Yeah, and I think you're getting the best team, of course, out of the Middle East with Sandrock. So if you're only going to take one, I do think it should be Sandrock. So
yeah,
they're going to be really excited for that. But again, that is happening I say the weekend. It starts on a Thursday, so it's Thursday the 16th. 8 days from today. That'll be Thursday of next week. The 16th runs all the way through Sunday, the 19th. You can check them out on Twitter. They have the announcement there that is WePlay_esports. Squidd, any final thoughts before we pivot on to our next news item here?
Not in particular. Just that I'm glad to see another tournament is happening in general at RLCS.
And I can actually watch this one. My schedule's actually free that weekend. Amazing. So I can actually tune in and watch it. Wow.
Nice. Nice. Very nice.
So when we do the recap of it the week after, I can actually have a really informed opinion about how everyone's playing.
Imagine actually watching the matches.
Imagine talking about Rocket League and then actually watching the esport. Would not be me.
Yeah, no, I think NRG, honestly, the worst team in NA. I've seen the results from Wikipedia, but clearly...
Yeah.
But in any case, I mean, that's really all we got to say about the WePlay. Looking forward to that one. As you said, Perino, you can finally watch it. I'm so happy for you. Oh my goodness.
It's been tough for me, Squidd. I've been very busy IRL, and all of these like off-season events just seem to happen whenever I actually have things to do, which is a strange and weird coincidence. But this one,
they're trying to save
pencil me in. Yeah, I'm tuning in for it. As we are going to jump into our next news item here. Again, we only have 2 items in the segment. We are going to be talking about some collegiate Rocket League. I mean, we have Squidd here. We gotta jump into the collegiate scene. Talking about the CCA Summer Series. It actually just concluded this week, and to nobody's surprise, the super team at Northwood takes it down over UT Austin in a thrilling grand final. Northwood, a lot of names behind them. They were kind of off and on, Squidd, through this event, but they pulled it out. They played the best when it mattered the most.
Well, I do think that there's going to be some people that argue, right, in the playoff bracket where we saw quite the story, I might add, on the eastern side, that Northwood kind of got into the finals and then they decided that they weren't really going to play anymore. Because I'll be deadly honest with you here, we have seen it a couple of times before where Northwood has just kind of stopped playing seriously because they know that they're going to win. And, I mean, power to them in that regard. They do end up taking the dubs where it matters, but they did also end up losing to Stockton twice in the Tower of Doom playoff bracket. Stockton, who did not even make it into Div 2, as I recall, because they missed the date, right? So Bussy actually had a competitive ban at the time of the signups for the Summer Series qualifiers, which meant that they had to go through the Open if they wanted to play with Bussy, and they did, and they made it to the finals, and it was just phenomenal. But they did fall to St. Clair, did Stockton, but they beat Northwood twice in that bracket, so people were hopeful. They were like, oh my god, is this finally the time? Is Northwood finally going to go down? Nope. Apparently not, as they did end up taking the Summer Series, as you mentioned, over UT Arlington in a 4-0 sweep. And their bracket run was pretty convincing as well. 4-2 over UNT, who did have a new roster. Ignite coming on to the field. I believe they were Corrosive before, and they're rebranding back to Corrosive, so I'm just going to call them that from here on. But they had D-Bank, Corrosive, and Too Fast actually playing, or excuse me, I think they might have had D-Bank, Lucia, and Too Fast playing, because that is the roster that Too Fast knows the best. But in any case, then 4-1 over St. Clair, who was also looking incredibly strong, particularly in the playoffs, made of Spoods, Comp, and Jay, an incredibly strong roster. And then UT Arlington recently added Alpa to their team of Adverse and Samba, which made them into a deadly force as well. So it was incredibly competitive for everybody who wasn't playing against Northwood, essentially. Right?
Yeah,
but
that's going to be the problem I think you run into in the future here. I mean, that university squad just so unbelievably talented. And they recently added, who did they add? They picked up someone. I forget. They had an announcement not that long ago.
Well, okay, so here's the deal, right? They have Noxus, Hockey, Buddy, and Pirates already attending. And then during the CCA Summer Series, they announced that they were getting Lion Blaze and T. Carell on top of that.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think I need to really emphasize how big of an issue that is for every other team who's trying to compete, right? Because, I mean, Hockey, I believe, so what I've heard through the grapevine, by the way, is that it will most likely be Hockey, T. Carell, and Noxus playing on a team. I feel like I got that right. Or, excuse me, it might be, no, sorry, it's going to be Noxus, Lion Blaze, and T. Carell playing on a team, if what I've heard is true, which then leaves Hockey, Buddy, and Pirates to play on their roster.
Which is still a crazy roster for a B team. That's outrageous.
Yes. Yeah, that is insanity. I mean, they already had a pretty good B team, right? They put up decent results in the past as a B team with their secondary roster. Granted, they did not make it into the finals. I don't know how far they made it in playoffs exactly, but they have also put up some good results there with Noxus to lead that team.
Yeah, and I want to give a quick shout out to, we talk about Northwood a lot because obviously, they have a lot of name recognition, but shout out to UTA, my boy Alpa, if he's listening. I used to play with Alpa back in the day. Now, mind you, he's gotten a lot better, and I have not. So I'm glad to just see him.
Surely.
Perino. Listen, I'm washed. I'm washed. But I'm glad that Alpa, got a chance to be on the stage. I know he likes to, create a bit of banter, a bit of drama, and it was fun to watch him, go through that event. He's a friend of mine, and I respect that, getting on the stage and, trying to make plays and keep it entertaining, to say the least.
Well, I mean, Perino, don't get your hopes down just yet. People are always saying that CRL is essentially Champ 3 League, so there's still hope. I'm sure that you could qualify for Champ 3 League.
Yeah, see, the problem is that I'm, I'm going to borrow a quote from Dazzard here. I'm 25 years old, and I'm not going to school anymore, so unless I want to, go for a master's degree somewhere and have two other players carry me the hard way, I don't think I'm getting in there.
Well, hopes and dreams, Perino. Maybe one day you'll make it. But, I mean, talking on UT Arlington's case, I will say it was a massive improvement for them on the season. They looked like they were struggling a couple of times in league play, and then they made it here all the way to the top. They lost out to Northwood again for 2-0, but they were a couple of close games. I believe it was 1 goal for 2 of them. And then, well, yeah, kind of things went a little bit downhill from there. But you get the idea, right? They were putting up a very good fight. To come second place in the entirety of the CCA Summer Series is something that you can be proud of, I think.
Oh, no question, Squidd. And, to get that audience, and build it up. It's a very solid summer event, as we move into the fall semester. I got to remember my, college schedule here. Moving into the fall semester, I'm sure they'll get another chance, with the CCA and CRL and all that stuff, they'll be on the big stage once more. So fun little sneak peek. Really fun summer series. Watching in and out. From the inside, Squidd. How was it? How did you feel that you guys did as a team? Getting everything broadcast and out there. I know it's a lot of work, but I thought you guys put on a great show.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you thought that, because I know that, especially throughout the season, there was a little bit of scramble here and there, but we did make ends meet, as we always do, right? And I think we put on a pretty damn good show, right? I think at the end of the day, we have been doing this for a long time. We've got a lot of people who have been doing this for a long time, one way or another, whether with the CCA or not. And things went about it as well as we could ask for, especially now with the teams being as skilled as they are. I've been saying it to basically everybody that I talk to about this, but I think that Rocket League, and I think most people will agree with me, is that Rocket League's collegiate scene is one of the more talented overall collegiate scenes that you'll find out there, right? I've seen a CSGO team, for instance, or a Valorant team. They have like 1 weak link, right, who's like in CSGO, like Nova 4, right? There's definitely not as good as the other players, but they're passable in some situations, right? They can be trained up. Now, in Rocket League, you have 3 Supersonic Legends on your team, and then we can talk about maybe winning CRL. But until then, it's not going to happen, right?
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, for reference, I helped start the Rocket League team at Temple University, and when we went for CRL qualifiers, this was back in season 2 of CRL. So we're going way back in a time machine. Again, I'm ancient. And we looked at some of the rosters from season 1 of CRL, and we were like, okay, we think we can compete. We're pretty decent. We're all like, high champ 3, low GC with like 1 like superstar player. We're like, okay, like we can get this done. And the talent level from then has only increased exponentially every single season. It is no longer a champ 3 league. I hate it when people use that term, because that is just not what it is.
Yeah, well, I mean, it has become something of a meme. I don't know if you know, but on the College Carball channel, we actually have, for 3,333 channel points, you can declare this to be champ 3 gameplay, which is admittedly fun to use at times. I mean, occasionally you will see that one play that makes you think, like, what the hell is going on here? Like, what am I actually looking at with my own 2 eyeballs?
I think it's hard when people
Trust me, it's rare. It's rare.
I think it's hard when people are so accustomed to watching professionals, right? And then the expectation of, quality of play is so high when you watch professionals, obviously, because they're the best in the world at what they do. And then you go into collegiate, and I think people still carry over that expectation, and the players just are not pros. And it's amazing how even just, like a half step behind, or, maybe a full step behind, like pro play, can look so much different when you see it on the screen. And everyone's a, what's the word? A
critic?
Armchair quarterback,
That too.
Watching from the sidelines, everyone thinks they're better than they are,
Okay,
you get out there.
Yeah, I understand that, and here's why I'm going to say that. It's because we actually will have people like jump in the chat. So when I'm not casting, I'll be watching the chat usually, or like hanging around in the chat room. And I'll see people be like, "Oh wow, this is like Diamond 3 gameplay," or like I'm Diamond and I could do better than this. I just have to politely remind them, of course, it's like these guys are not Diamond 3, and you are a shitter. I'm sorry. Like, there's only one way to put this, and it's that you are crap at the game. All right, just get over it. These guys are way better than you're gonna be in a long time. Like, unless you really put in the grind, it takes 1,000 hours to get where they are at, and even as I'm thinking about it, right, I also want to give a couple of words of support for Snipes and Too Fast, who did play in their final event for their CRL careers on this particular finals. It was unfortunate for Snipes to get 4-0'd by UTA. And Too Fast put up a little bit more of a fight there against Northwood with that 4-2 finish. Not the worst in the world. UNT have been known to give Northwood a run for their money as well. So big send-off to those guys, and we are unfortunately probably going to be saying goodbye to a lot more of our veteran players in the coming year.
Yeah, it's a scene that has grown over time, but there are young players, still just getting started, and the more, freshmen and sophomores that, they bring in, like, the better for the collegiate scene overall. And yeah, just a great event for collegiate Rocket League, holding us over through the summer and into the fall. But Any final thoughts as we get into our next segment, Squid? Because as much as I enjoy talking CRL, I'm sure I'm gonna get a DM on Twitter later that's like, CRL really, lol. People suck.
No, you're right. You're right. CRL sucks. We all knew it in our heart of hearts, right? I think people give it a bad rep, but yeah, that's all we have to say on that one. So I think we can move on here to one of the biggest meat parts of our show for today.
Wait, hold on. Wait, Squid.
What?
We gotta cut into the scene correctly. It's very important that we do this every time, because it's part of the tradition of the show. Our sequence into the next segment is, of course, we're headed into the roster shuffle. And so in the roster shuffle, we have a few big items. Just a couple. I don't know. Again, if you've been listening, you might be able to see that we've had a couple of big items here.
Yeah, I think a couple is kind of an understatement, but everybody saw this coming, though, right? It's the end of RLCS 10, which lasted for, what was it, 8 months, right? That's a pretty ridiculous amount of time. So everybody at the end of that, of course, was saying, like, all right, what can we do to improve our performance? Particularly Dignitas, who narrowly missed out on the regional championship because they kind of blundered a couple of times, but I will digress on that one for now. Not because I was really hoping that Dignitas would make it to the regionals or anything. In any case, everybody does know about the Dignitas change, though. Scrub Killa being picked up in place of Violent Panda. That one, not terribly controversial, I think, for a lot of people. That's not even on our notes here, by the way. I'm just going to point that out. But the first one I decided to go with is Violent Panda and Verge, I might add, being removed from the Dignitas roster. And personally, with the way that I know Verge to play and the way that I know Verge to coach and the way that I know Violent Panda to play, I feel like they were always going to be something of a package deal for Jorias and apparently Jack, based on the fact that Verge is very heavy on rotational play and utilizing more of a team-oriented effort as opposed to trying to utilize solo skills. Granted, he did spec into that at times, but there was a fairly heavy focus with Violent Panda being the playmaker. So I wasn't necessarily terribly surprised to see Violent Panda and Verge leave as a package combo, which I believe then Verge also went to Violent Panda's new team with Though and Oli, right? So,
yes,
not a surprise for me there.
Yeah, so we knew that, again, a lot of this has been rumors, and we've covered it a bit on the show, so it's putting the official stamp of approval on some of the things that we have talked about extensively. So obviously, as you mentioned, Dignitas, with Violent Panda and Verge leaving, there is a new team that is Violent Panda, Though, and Oli. They don't have a name yet, but they are going to be teaming for Season 11. That means, of course, that Guild has released Though. And yeah, it's definitely a strong roster. We were speculating as to, where Violent Panda would end up. Obviously, he's had such a legendary career throughout RLCS, and there have been some question marks, I think, but this is a really talented team. On paper, at least, when you look at it, you're like, okay, well, these guys can compete. The question is really, what is their ceiling? Can they approach, BDS, Vitality, and I would say even Guild, frankly, trying to, punch up into EU, and that's where I go, I don't know. I don't really know what their ceiling is.
Well, I think that the important thing that we need to ask ourselves here is, okay, right, they might not be on paper one of the greatest teams ever, but let me pose this question to you, right? And this is what we should be asking ourselves is, where did BDS come from? Right?
Nowhere.
They essentially just decided, you know what, I'm tired of being a rival series level team in this new RLCS format. I'm just going to win everything. And that's exactly what they did. And that's what I've been saying the whole time, right? They had basically the former ARG roster with Mark Bait, Monkey Moon, right? That was just two rival series level players. Nobody ever expected much of them. And then here they come just burning out everybody else with relative ease along with Extra. Those were all three when I was in the Rival Series, for instance, when I did Rival Series casting, these were 3 players that I was like, okay, yeah, they're okay. Nothing particularly outstanding about them, stats-wise, gameplay-wise. And then, you blink, RLCS Season 10, they're on top of the world in more ways than one. So it could very well be, and I think it's more plausible that this is the case as well for Violent Panda, though, and Oli, considering that they are a brand new team, right? Usually you don't completely break up in three different players. Usually you just get one player joining an already existing duo, like apparently Jack and Jory is with Scrub Killa. But this is something else, right? So this is something that I think EU is going to have to watch out for and take very seriously, because it could well be a meteoric rise situation.
Yeah, and I think it's also a group of 3 players who will probably feel, what's the word I'm looking for? Passed over, perhaps, by some of the other teams in the scene. They might have a chip on their shoulder. I think they're really going to have, a point to prove with this roster. And really try and go after some of these teams. And there is like a bit of that mental edge, of, man, nobody, I got dropped, I got released, like whatever, sort of a misfits crew in a way. And I do think that plays a part in it. I don't like to speculate on like personal relationships and everything, but I have to imagine it kind of sucks getting cut, or getting pushed out. These are very small rosters, only groups of 3. Like, it's very personal when you get rid of someone or add someone new. And so I imagine there's a bit of a push there for these 3 guys in particular to really come out and take some games off some of the best teams, because they're going to want to come out and say, look, like, I'm still really good. I can still play at the highest level, and we're going to, dominate. So I think that'll help them grind and, produce some good results. But we'll see. Who knows, really?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's also the other side of that coin, right, which is, fear that they need to perform, right? Because without Norg right now, I mean, they do have some incredibly talented players, though coming off of Guild with a paid contract, right? Violent Panda and Verge, both coming off of Dignitas. These are incredibly talented people who are used to being at the top. So in the event that they can't perform, it's going to be a huge investment that has just gone straight down the drain for these guys. And to that note, I think that there's going to be some confidence here. They would not make this kind of a gambit without some relative confidence in themselves, and with Verge to guide it. I've always had a lot of faith in him as a coach personally, so I think it will be a difficult challenge for any team in EU at this point in time. Well, maybe not for like BDS, but I think that's always going to be the case, right? BDS is not going to be challenged by anybody for some time, it seems, as they are still on top of the world for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, but things change quickly. We know that. You never know, truly, especially in EU.
That is true. Yeah, I mean, you said it earlier, right? There's a gap for us NA people sometimes. I mean, even me looking at this one. Actually, I'll kind of like shift gears. We got Yukis, Moxie, and Sluey joining a team, which I'll be honest, I've only actually heard one of those names that I can recall. I don't think Moxie even has a Wikipedia page, strangely enough.
Yeah, and this was this was one that we saw in the middle of the week. Lille, for those who don't know, they are a French soccer club, I believe, is the Lille esports page. They have similar to like PSG or Barcelona, just not quite that big. Those are 2 of the biggest brands in the world. But same idea, same concept, picking up a Rocket League team, and yeah, wanted to put it on here because it's nice to get some of that football money in there. Yukis, Moxie, and Sluey. I'll say the same thing, Squidd. I don't know too much about all 3 of them. I haven't seen a ton out of them, but it is nice to see a little addition of the French club there, getting in on the action with Rocket League. Listen, we welcome organizations with open arms. Anybody that wants to sign a team, get on in there.
That is true. And you mentioned the football money as well. I mean, FCB was one of the bigger entrances that we've seen in a long time. I was kind of disappointed to see them leave, personally. And I would certainly hope that they get kind of back into it. But I think, the biggest question mark, obviously, Moxie. Like I said, without a Wikipedia page, for people who don't know this player personally, like myself, it's just pure speculation at this point. So perhaps it's like a Driaz situation where they come basically out of left field and suddenly are one of the better players on the continent. But we will just kind of have to wait and see, I think.
Yeah, it's a tough continent to get a foothold into. When you have teams like BDS, Vitality, Dignitas, Guild, Carmine Core. It's like there's so many big names and only so much room at the top. So we'll see how they do, but I do like the Lille edition there, and as we continue along our list here, we do, of course, Squid. This is the big ticket one for all of us NA fanboys. We've hyped it up a ton. We spoke a little bit about it earlier, but I'll announce them in tandem because it's effectively a swap. FaZe has announced the official signing of First Killer, and Rogue has officially announced the signing of Gyro. So those two are effectively switching spots within the top 6 of North America. We talked a little bit about results, but on paper, at least, Squid, FaZe coming up huge here. I mean, anytime that you can sign a player with the talent of First Killer, automatic W.
Oh, yeah. I don't think anybody's going to argue on that part. I think that the one big surprise I have for this is that Rogue allowed First Killer to leave. I honestly am shocked that anybody would willingly give up First Killer in any reasonable exchange, right? Unless you are literally getting Garrett G, who is undoubtedly a goated player, or, for instance, like Turbo Pulsa, right? Those are like 2 NA players that I think might be an equivalent trade for First Killer. Gyro, I'm sorry. I love the guy. That's not a good deal for Rogue. I don't know what in the world they were thinking, and especially looking back at their performance. I mean, they did so much better after picking up First Killer. Their performances in RLCSX just skyrocketed as soon as they got that pickup. It was literally insane. I mean, with multiple first place finishes, I might add. Like, you can't really get much better than that. I mean, Turnturo and Taroko both were kind of rank A, rank X players and blasted out of nowhere after getting on the same team with First Killer. Now First Killer with FaZe, I think still going to do some major damage, but Gyro is not nearly as talented. And I think Rogue is going to be on a huge decline here in the upcoming season.
Yeah, and there's a couple of things there, when you talk about moving players. I think what's so difficult about Rocket League is because the teams are so small, because it's only 3, it makes it very difficult to hold a player against their will. It can have a massive negative impact on an organization when you have one player who wants to leave or, wants to go to a new team. And ultimately, the players have a lot of power. Compared to other esports, especially against like a franchised esport, Rocket League players in particular, have so much power over, roster decisions and not getting any like cash considerations. Is the baseball phrase right there, or is that an NBA phrase? Either way,
I don't know.
One or the other, but not getting something for the release of First Killer. Yeah, I'm with you, but also, if you're Rogue, do you really want to sit there and, hold someone back and keep them against their will? Like, it creates a really, really ugly situation quickly. And so I think most teams will be more on the side of letting players go and doing their thing. Bringing in Gyro, yeah, it's not going to be the same as playing with First Killer. Gyro's very good. He definitely has... he has an immeasurable amount of talent. He's just not First Killer. I mean, straight up. When you look at it, eye for eye, there's just not, any way where you can say, yeah, Rogue definitely came out ahead here. I don't know if they'll decline that sharply. If anything, I think, when you bring in Gyro, I think will allow Turnturo and Taroko, a bit more flexibility in how they play. So we'll see. I'm not writing them off yet. I don't know that, I would consider them top 4. I think they're still top 6.
Maybe. But let's not count on Shopify, right? That's somebody who did make a roster change, and I think rightfully so. I think Shopify looking very good. Again, Rapid Beast Mode and Memory, if memory serves. And I believe that's correct. So I'm not
Yes.
going to second guess myself on that one. But yeah, I think when you stack them up, Gyro has great pop-off potential. Problem is he pops off once in every 10 tournaments, and that is simply not good enough. And I am looking back on the Rogue results, by the way. I'm noticing before they pick up First Killer, 5th to 8th in the fall NA Major, and then in the follow-up, right, Winter Major, 2nd place, and then 3rd, 4th in Spring, but they did place 5th in the Championship, so I believe that might have been part of their rationale in letting it go. The Lamborghini Open also saw them place 5th to 8th, losing out to NRG 2 games to 4. So I think they might not have had the performance that they wanted, right? They wanted that #1 spot. But I'll be honest, if you had swapped out Turin or Taroko, you might be finding yourself in that #1 spot. Or even if you just gave them more time, you might find yourself in that #1 spot. Because realistically, they only had like a half a year to actually make it work. I don't know if that's a long enough period of time. Granted, we do see a lot of teams have that meteoric rise like BDS where it's just like, oh, suddenly they're the best in the world. But some teams, it is a slow burn. I think version 1 is a good example of this. Over the course of RLCSX, they did have to pick up Calm at the beginning, and I was personally skeptical, but they kind of proved me wrong. You know, version 1 became a very good team at the end of the day. I think they definitely had some top 6 contention in multiple spots. They were certainly a dark horse team that I look forward to seeing all the time. The Shopify Rebellion kind of sat in that category too. So I think Rogue might have jumped the gun a little bit on that one, or at least if they were going to make a trade, I would have swapped out Turn or Taroko. Seriously, a huge misevaluation there. But let's talk on the other perspective now. For FaZe, honestly, it's a pretty damn good trade. I mean, getting First Killer for Gyro, at least, you know, some people might say that Illusion might have deserved to get off the team, but I think Illusion actually is a fantastic player when it comes to the janitorial duties and keeping the rotation in line.
Yeah, for FaZe, so this is the thing with FaZe Clan, right? Like they, you know, a lot of people know them as like a content org, you know, they have a lot of big streamers and big personalities, you know, it comes with its own brand, right, and its own lifestyle. Yeah. But aside from that, the #1 thing that, you know, goes with that is they also back it up in their respective esports too. You know, when they sign teams and when they bring teams together, they are not just doing it for the sake of doing it. They want to have world-class teams. And so for FaZe, you're bringing in a world-class player with First Killer. And so it's excellent for them. Obviously, I think this catapults them into, you know, out of like, I would say where they were like in that 5th to 6th spot into like the more like 3 or 4 spot, you know, top, you know, getting them closer and closer to the top. I don't know that they'll be able to challenge who, you know, NRG is really, I consider, you know, ultimately the best team in North America. We'll see. It's a long season. But FaZe fans should be incredibly hyped for First Killer. So much talent, as you said, with Illusion, you know, kind of keeping it together with AJ and First Killer. They should be a lot of fun to watch. If they can, you know, sort of figure out the playstyle and get everyone, you know, firing on all cylinders at all times, that's a dangerous roster, to say the least.
Yeah. I think one of the other things I noted as well for FaZe Clan, where this might be a good pickup, or at least a good trade, is I think one of the other things I talk about with FaZe is when I was doing the Peeps Grid broadcast for them way back before they got sponsored, I always talked about how, you know, if you could get that rare day where both AJ and Gyro were popping off, they were basically unbeatable. Problem being, like I said, you know, Gyro pops off once in every 10 tournaments maybe. AJ is pretty much the same. So the likelihood that you're going to have that happen is incredibly low. When you have Gyro or AJ popping off, that's a different story, right? You know, they compete with the best of them. But they almost always would lose out, you know, right? They wouldn't quite make it to the finish line. So I think that for FaZe, this is going to be huge. I can't wait to see what kind of damage they can do. But I don't really think there's too much else to that story. You do mention, though, you know, FaZe, normally a content organization. I personally remember them as kind of like the trick shotting clan in Call of Duty that everyone wants to be a part of. And I got to say, if you're looking for trick shots, you got your guy. He's a shoo-in, right? He's doing all the new mechanics.
Yeah, and well, with the AJ, too. You know, the two of them together, it's a bit of a freestyle event out there. So, yeah, definitely on brand. And, yeah, I wonder if we'll actually get any real, like, FaZe Clan content out of the Rocket League team. It's such a weird one because with Rocket League content, like with esports content, I'll say in particular, you know, with the actual players, there typically isn't too much. We saw NRG do a little bit of that over the summer. Where they rented out that house. They had like Sizz and Musty and
I thought
Garrett.
that was a house they bought. I thought that's the NRG content house now.
Did they buy it?
Yeah,
I don't even know.
I'm pretty sure they got them in that house, which I will admit, it's a good looking place. That's all I'm saying.
Listen, and Andy Miller, he'll shell out for the Rocket League team. That he's come out on the record and said that he loves Rocket League and big fan. Of course, with NRG putting up the results like they do, it's really hard to argue against it. But yeah, they'll be in a good spot. I don't know if we'll see a FaZe Rocket League house or if any of the FaZe players will go because they're also so much younger too. The FaZe these days the FaZe personalities are like getting older, at least from like the guys that I know. But I could be off on that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think like Alu is. I don't know. Hang on. Let me check his Wikipedia page. See, this is another reason we like Wikipedias. You can check the age of the players, right? He's 21, right? First Killer is young, and AJ is too. I mean, look, I'm gonna be honest. When I saw AJ at Gnarly 2, so this was probably
now you're dating yourself.
3 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh well, I mean, you dated yourself with talking about CRL season 2. All right, I was playing in season 1. All right, so you need to calm yourself. I played in CRL season 1, but in any case, when I saw AJ at Gnarly 2, I was like, what the hell? They let this guy play? What's going on? The man was literally the smallest person I think I've ever seen that was actually his age. It was ridiculous. Like, both height-wise and, like, build, right? He was an absolute twig. I couldn't believe it.
I ran into him randomly at RLCS Season 7 finals, right? The one in New Jersey, whatever one it was.
Yep.
Yeah, I just happened to be walking around. I happened to see him, and I thought I had the same reaction too. I was like, "Oh man, like this is a young kid."
Yeah.
But he's again very talented at the game. I just don't know that we'll see. I don't know if we'll see those guys in any content. It would be kind of cool, just to get more exposure to the esport, and bring another kind of audience into it. But I don't know.
Well, I will also say, Sunless did a great job with the RLBS, and I noticed one clip while I was watching it just earlier today. Is Axel Toss? He kind of mentioned it. He was like, "Oh yeah, we got all of your favorite socially awkward teenagers around to watch them play Rocket League." And I couldn't help but think to myself, like, that's probably accurate to some extent for some of these guys. And I think for FaZe, yeah, I'm kind of 50-50 on whether or not they'd be that way. I think AJ is a bit quieter around people he doesn't know, but that might be one of the reasons why they're not doing as much content, right? Is because it's just not really in their nature. They might warm up to it. I think a lot of people just need to get their feet in the water before things really start to take off. But I will also note that nothing can ever compare to the Rocket League DMV that BTS did as one of their skits. Man, that was hilarious. I could not stop laughing at that.
Yeah, we need another BTS event badly. I think
we need another LAN event as well.
Wow.
All right, I'm just throwing it out there. Everybody's been saying it. We need another LAN event. It's gotta happen.
Yeah, and I need $1 million wired to my bank account too. We'll see which happens first. But hey, only so much you can do. I think we've covered that one enough. You want to go into another North American signing here, another new team?
Sure. Shall I just pick one out of the list here? Actually, wait. We only got 2 more on the list, don't we?
There's only 2 more on the list. I was gonna say we'll go in order.
No. Because I actually do want to talk about this one.
Okay.
United.
All right, let's do it.
Savvy Seal. Okay, here's the deal. All right, Raw Greg gets signed to United as the coach. Savvy Seal follows shortly afterwards. These guys were teammates for the longest time as a part of whatever their team was called. Oh my goodness, why can't I remember? Hang on, I gotta look this up now. Because Savvy and Raw Greg played together all the time with Bork as a part of... Oh, yep, they were on triple commit, and then they were called Soul, and then they were all mid. Okay, that's the wrong order. It was Soul, then triple commit, then all mid. This was their team. And they failed to make the Rivals Series, like, 3 seasons in a row. And it was the most heartbreaking stuff because they always made it to the last round and they always failed to make it in that last round.
They were the epitome of the bubble team. Like they were the bubble. Stone cold. Yeah, it was tough. But
Oh,
yeah, it is a interesting move there. We talked about the rumor last week. It is official now. So United did come out and officially announce the signing of Savvy Seal. It's just, as you said, it just feels like one of those things, where you bring in the coach, and then he brings in like his guy. Not that I think Savvy Seal's a bad player. Again, I've watched these guys play a lot. I know that he's a talented player. Like I'm not questioning the ability. I am questioning the ability to play at the very top of RLCS. When you have
yes.
an org like E United backing you, they also want results, and E United have been a team where they've been constantly making moves. They've never found something that really fits. Throughout the entirety of Season 10, really, they were bouncing results left or right, bringing players in, moving players out. So they're still trying to, throw something at the wall and make it stick. I just don't know that Savvy's the answer.
Yeah, you mentioned they're throwing stuff at the wall and trying to get it to stick. I think that here's the deal, right? They started with Ajax, Wonder Mike, and Tristan, and they threw that at the wall, and that was like the Nickelodeon slime that you get shipped to your house, like the little bucket, right? And that, you could make an argument that that might stick reasonably well. Then they were like, oh, that didn't work. Let's switch over to Dapper, which I would equivalent to essentially like a cell phone, right? You might throw it and like one of the parts might get stuck on the wall, right? But it's certainly going to shatter. It's going to be horribly broken. I mean, Dapper, great guy, simply does not compete at that level. You could argue that maybe he's making a run back. He just need to come out of that sub spot, and maybe it would have worked. And now with Savvy, it's essentially like throwing a brick at another brick. Like, what do you expect to happen here? I'm sorry, but I love Savvy as a guy. This is the same thing I'm going to say about Gyro. Like, I really enjoy Savvy as a person. And I don't say that just because I say that, but I actually had some decently close relations with Rogreg and Bork and Savvy. I had seen them in person at LANs, and like I'd been cheering them for a long time on Twitter. You can go and check it out. But I just can't, in good faith, say that this is going to be a good transition for United to bring Savvy onto the starting roster. I don't see it happening. That being said, we do see players kind of come out of nowhere and make it straight to the top. This is still a little bit like of a magnitude just above what we saw with BDS, for instance. So I'm just not convinced.
Yeah, and I mean, even for the record, we've had Rogreg as a guest on this show back in Season 1, I'm pretty sure, way back, when we were doing the first season of Around the Scene. And again, same thing, amazing person, really, really smart guy, had a lot to say, was a great guest, great person, nothing but positive things to say. I don't see the results. I don't see the results for E United with, that roster. But they got to go with someone, and, the advantage, of course, if you have Rogreg coaching in there is, okay, you can, have a player that you already know what they're capable of, what their work ethic is like, how they play, trying to, put the puzzle pieces back in, so to speak, and try and make something that actually works. At least you're getting a player that you have familiarity with. So there is that. I'm not saying it's all bad, but I think a lot of question marks, and the moment it doesn't really go well for them, if they don't have like immediate results, I think people are really going to come out and say, like, what's up with this? That's going to be the hard part.
But, I mean, that being said, though, wish them the best of luck. I would love to be proven wrong. By all means.
Oh, likewise.
Please. Just blast my expectations out of the water. But I don't think there's really much else to be said about that one. So, as much as it may not be the appropriate move, I still hope to God that they put up some decent results, because I would love nothing more than to see Savvy and Rogreg succeed where they have been unable to do so before. But in any case, I mean, speaking about succeeding where they were unable to do so before, let's talk about the last roster move that we have here on the list, Perino. We have Mektos and Freshness and Wonder Mike all moving over to KCP. This is a complete fresh roster, basically a soft reboot on a team that was already doing phenomenally well who got moved over to the Shopify Rebellion. So let's talk on that one. First off, with the brass tacks, do you think Shopify just bought out the contract for the KCP team because they wanted it worse?
Yes, that is almost certainly what happened. I would nearly guarantee it. I can't actually guarantee it, but I would nearly guarantee it. Yes. Yeah, Shopify came in, with the former Kansas City Pioneers roster, and they wanted to get into the scene. They wanted a good team, named the right price. The thing with the Pioneers is that they are what's the word I'm looking for? I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but they don't have the money that some of the bigger organizations in North America do. So when you get a player, or when you get an organization, that's backed by, Shopify, they have a bunch of money, real corporate money to spend. Like, okay, KCP can sell, and they'll take the money. But this is a weird one because the Pioneers had brought on Kronovi's old team. And we just talked about it last week. I'm going to pull up the Wikipedia really quick for Kansas City Pioneers because it's kind of humorous in a way when you go through the history here. So they acquire the Continuum roster, right? This is on May 14th of this year. So that was Kronovi, Aeon, Astro. They bring them in, basically right at the end of season 10. About 2 weeks ago, Kansas City Pioneers, they announced Drawley. And then we talked about it on the show. They just let the roster go. So Aeon, Astro, and Bob just get cut. They keep Kronovi to do something. We still don't really know. And now they come in and say, okay, we're bringing in freshness and Mektos from Ghost, and then we're also completing it with Wondamike, who is a player that we were talking about. We couldn't believe that he hadn't gone anywhere yet. This makes a lot more sense that he's going with Kansas City Pioneers. And yeah, so they basically did a complete 180 on all of us. They said, hey, you know what? We don't think this is going to work, and now we're just splashing some of that cash, I guess, and getting these guys in. So fair play to the Pioneers. I like the aggressive maneuvering to get a good roster going. I think this is a very competitive roster. When you look at freshness, Mektos, and Wondamike, like on paper, they should be pretty decent. Hard to say how well they can really do just yet. We don't really have like full competition, but I think on paper it's a really good move.
Well, I think this all comes down to the money part of it. Based on what they probably got out of the deal to sell out to Shopify Rebellion, if that was what happened, then I think, yes, it's a good move for them. Thinking from a raw roster standpoint, though, I do not like it, right? For them to lose out on a team where Rapid finally felt comfortable and were beast mode, basically propelled their team into one of the top 6 contention, right? I just don't like it. And when I say that, do understand that Rapid, for the longest time, he's been skipping around through teams. Flight RLE was the last big one that I recall him being on before KCP. I might be correct on that one, actually. Let's see here. Or, no. Okay, so KCP obviously acquired Continuum. What am I remembering? Hang on a second. All right, now I got to figure this out. Where did Rapid... Who picked up Flight RLE?
It was RBG initially when they first got promoted into the RLCS. But then they had that whole fiasco with dropping Aeon before they actually played a game of RLCS after they got promoted from Rival Series, and he was there for a bit.
Yes.
And then they were with RBG, then they became Flight for that season, and then that was season 9. Season 10, they get picked up by the Pioneers.
Yeah, oh my goodness. Hang on. KCP, so it shows here in the references, so I had to control F this, but it shows here in the references that KCP tweeted out that they acquired Flight RLE. For some reason, that's not on the Wikipedia page. It does not show that they ever picked up Flight RLE.
Interesting. I mean, that is how it worked, though.
That is how it works. So Kansas City Pioneers picked up Flight RLE at one point, which included Rapid on that team, and I believe Memory at the same time. So that was the big problem. Is Flight RLE bombed out of RLCS. They did atrociously, right? It was a complete blowout performance. They never seemed to have a very good game. And then Beast Mode came along and magically was like, bang, complete change of pace. Everything was different from there on out. Rapid, a guy who seemed to lose all of his skills as soon as his team started losing, suddenly became a mental stonewall, which I don't know how that happened. Basically, everybody that he played with, he was the same story, right? Once his team started losing, he lost steam, and then everything fell apart, and it was just a blowout. But as soon as Beast Mode got on the roster, things changed. And I think now, like I said, Shopify, they're a great team. Now back to the point, for Kansas City to pick up this new team of Wonder Mike, Freshness, and Mektos, they're 3 solid players in a vacuum. I don't necessarily know if that's going to be the greatest lineup of 3. We've seen what happens when you take 3, like, dark horse kind of strong players, right? Wonder Mike was the star player for United. Mektos wasn't necessarily the star player of Ghost, I think, but that's just because you had Lion Blaze on that roster as well. Mm-hmm. And then Freshness also felt very strong in his own regard. But you don't really have much of a balance on that, and granted, that's never been super important when it comes to RL Esports. It does tend to kind of have a pattern where if you don't have somebody keeping the heads cool, then things start to fall apart.
Yeah, and obviously it's really hard to say how these guys will do. I think from KCP's point of view, though, to some extent you have to take the money, right? Like, when Shopify comes in and, they offer, a buyout and, they're offering the players like big contracts. Like, it's kind of similar to the point that we made earlier. Like, you can't really hold the players hostage, like at some point you kind of have to, kick the young bird out of the nest and let it fly. You can't hold these guys forever. And, I don't fault them for taking money because, again, they're not like a North American powerhouse organization, not to my knowledge. I mean, I'm assuming they have backing of some kind, but certainly not to the extent of other organizations within the space. And this is a team that can still work. Are they going to be as good as Rapid, Memory, and Beast Mode? Almost certainly not. But they'll still be competitive. And I think it'll still be worth the Pioneers' time to, have these guys on the field and, getting in there and getting results. So I think overall it's still really good. I'm really happy that Wonder Mike ended up in a good home with the Pioneers. Again, that was a player that Ryan and I in particular kept harping on. Like, why hasn't this guy been picked up by anyone yet over some of the names that we saw? And then it's like, okay, well, now we see why. So I'm very happy for him in particular. Freshness and Mektos coming out of Ghost, same thing. Ghost hasn't announced it yet, but they are bringing in, I believe it was Shock and Roldis, right? Was the rumor that I saw? I don't know.
I don't recall.
All the names are rolling together, but same thing. They needed a home. They end up with the Pioneers. It's a great spot to be. Again, good organization, good people, and I think they'll do well. Well is a relative term, but
I hope so. And I think to round out, all this talk about KCP, one thing that I do have to lament, regardless of whether or not it's a good move, I personally would like to say that it's not, but I'm not sure if I can do so in good faith, so I'm just going to lament it openly and not really give an opinion. Kronovi has to move out to the substitute role. It hurts on the inside. He's been here since the beginning, not just from Rocket League, but for SARP BC2, and he finally finds himself in a not starting spot here.
Yeah, we will see what Kronovi's role is within the Pioneers organization. They've been very what's the word? They've been very non-committal about what he's going to be doing. So yeah, definitely an interesting one. We'll see what Kronovi does, and whether he's playing or doing content creation, or if he's coaching, subbing, whatever. He'll be fun. He's Kronovi. He is the GOAT. He is the mountain.
He's the mountain.
he'll be good on the top.
Yeah. But I think for the most part, right, that's all the roster moves that we have up to date right now. Hang on, I'm going to check Twitter real quick to make sure nobody just now announced something that we have to talk about.
The only other thing that I saw, we can mention it really quickly at the end, Flashes of Brilliance for the Women's Carball Championship announced
the
the
WCBC
acquisition of BG. So that roster is going to be Kira, Avenger, and who's the third? Oh my god, I can't believe I'm forgetting because I cast for these people all the time.
Oh my goodness.
No. Why am I
Come on,
blanking on it
come
now?
on.
See, the problem is I didn't include it in the notes.
You
because
do also mention, though, WCBC, another team that the KC Pioneers
Angie.
are picking up.
Sorry.
It's Courtney, Bella, and Emma as KCP Gold. So
Yes.
it's not just Flashes of Brilliance. Black Flame also getting in, picking up, which I believe was the former Venus Vixens, if I'm remembering that correctly.
You are?
So WCBC is also picking up a little bit of traction. We don't really have that in our notes, but we might have to touch on that in a future episode. Or I guess you will if I'm not here again. Which
We saw the WCBC's been doing weeklies, and it's a fun one to watch. I'll do a shameless plug. If you're hanging around on Twitch, they typically run them on Tuesdays through the summer. They've been doing all sorts of weeklies. The ladies there are really talented, fun games, great people, great events. Shameless plug because again, I do some work with them, but that was the only one that I saw. Flashes of Brilliance again. That's Kira, Avenger, Angie, Tally is the other member there, is listed in the coaching role. So
makes sense.
not sure what Tally's plans are, but for the moment listed as the coach. And yeah, should be a fun one to watch WCBC. But other than that, I think that is going to conclude the roster shuffle. And so Squid, as I'm looking at the time here, it appears we do this every week, Ryan and I. We say we're going to get to another segment afterwards, and then I look at the clock, and it's been an hour. Just
our
like
cup
that.
runneth over. It's just that easy with Rocket League Esports. Our cup runneth over.
See, this is the problem. You get a couple of, people who are used to talking over Rocket League Esports, doing commentary, and then you give them a recording session where they can say whatever they want, and it's way too much.
I just enjoy the freedom of not having to avoid using curse words because it helps me convey my own emotions, right?
Yeah.
Still try to shy away from the big one, but you get that.
We keep it mostly PG in here. On occasion you'll hear us swear, but it's nice to have that freedom, and it's nice to have you on the show, Squid. A little bit of a change of pace, but I must say I've enjoyed your analysis and everything you bring to the table. As we are headed out of the episode, you can always find Squid on his Twitter page. That is at Squidd with 2 Ds, Squidd TV. Any other shameless plugs you'd like to give? I know you do a lot of different things. Anything else you want to shout out?
I guess only college carball, because that's the one big project I've been working on for 5 years. But no, I really got nothing else.
Yeah, well, it was an absolute pleasure to have you on, and guys, that's pretty much going to do it for us here tonight. Again, be sure to follow us on our social media pages. You can check us out on Twitter at PWR_leagues. My personal handle is at Perino TV. If you have anyone that you want to hear from, if you have suggestions, ideas, comments, criticism, whatever, shoot it at me. And I may or may not consider it depending on how I'm feeling that day. Again, this episode will be live tomorrow, the 9th of September, on all platforms. It'll be on our YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts as well. But ladies and gentlemen, this has been Around the Scene, presented to you by Playing with Rockets. My name is Perino. I have been joined by Squid this week. We'll keep you up to date on who we have coming back. We'll see if Squid enjoyed me or not. Thanks for hanging out with us. Take care and enjoy the rest of your day. We will see you guys on the next one. Thank you and have a great night.